I was an engineer and in 2008 lost my job due to the economic collapse. Jobs were scarce. I didn't know where to turn to get help updating my resume. Online services and coaches charge hundreds, even thousands of dollars. I took matters into my own hands and learned how to craft interview-winning resumes. Shortly later, I landed a job with a Fortune 500 company. I have helped many achieve similar success. Now I share my tips to create interview-winning resumes, interviewing excellence, and high-performance growth strategies on my podcast, Career Growth Made Easy. Hey there, and welcome back to the Career Growth Made Easy podcast. I'm your host, Craig Ansell. We're rolling into episode 115 today, titled Pay Rate versus Pay Range. Maximize your money. Today, we're talking about the pay rate you might be offered versus a potential pay range that's there. Maybe it's hidden and you're not aware of it. This can affect you whether you're talking about hourly pay or salary pay. So, the question in your mind today might be, how do you rock the pay offer? How do you maximize your money? Whether it's hourly pay or salary pay, I encourage you to think of salary as a range versus a rate. To expand on that, let's take a look at someone that might be applying for a salary job position. And the salary range is $40,000 to $60,000 a year. What would it take to earn mid to upper section of that salary range? Let's see. You start at around $40,000, you get it, you're great, it's great, you're thrilled. You received a job offer after going through your interview prep and all the great stuff. And they offer you $40,000 and you take it. Okay, congratulations, yes. However, you may, emphasize may, have the opportunity to earn, let's say, up to 3% of a salary increase each year. That means you have to prove yourself, prove your worth, and then hope, pray, and believe that your company follows processes that allow you to be reviewed annually and potentially receive compensation increases. Fast forward, $40,000 a year for salary times 3% is approximately $1,200. Actually, it is $1,200. If we round that down just a little in case you didn't make the max pay increase of 3%, let's call it $1,000. Simple math. Going from $40,000 to $60,000 a year at $1,000 a year increments, you're not going to get there for 20 years. Now, I know there's compound valuation. Your salary increase may be a little higher. I get all that. But at the end of the day, it could take you 15 to 20 years to get up to the mid to upper or top out area of that salary. Earning that salary increase, you deserve it, you work hard, you're worth it. But what if, I ask you, what if you considered that before your interview, before you applied? What if you had a way to kind of improve the odds and be there at the mid to upper end of that salary range? I'll tell you what, there is a way to do it, and we're going to talk about it today. It starts out with your story. You might have also listened to some of my other shows, and I also use the word branding. Your brand, your image, it all comes down to your message. As part of what I do, I have the opportunity to speak to quite a few human resource professionals, hiring managers and directors, as well as talent acquisition and recruiters. Today, I'm going to share some of what we've discussed recently regarding pay offers. Several have said, if you're going to receive a job offer, the pay has already been determined before the interview. Newsflash, before the interview. Now, you might be shaking your head or want to rewind a bit, but I assure you what I'm sharing is factual. Your pay was determined before the interview, before they physically met you. Now, Craig, how can that be? Don't worry, we're going to talk about that today. If you want to write in for some social media comments, you're welcome. But don't worry. Not all businesses operate this way. It may be just a few that I spoke to, but remember, we are wired similarly. And as a result, everything we learn has an opportunity to apply to our situations. So I'm going to support this discussion the following way. There is good news, though, that if you've been a regular listener of my show, you already have some of the techniques necessary to succeed on this topic. For example, in my last two episodes, 113, How to Answer Common Interview Questions, and 114, In-Person Interviews Are Back, I share on some of the things that can affect you and improve your situation with regards to interviewing and pay. But one of the things I asked during those shows was, when do you think the interview starts? I shared great answers from some of my coaching and mentoring students as well. But I also told you my thoughts, what I've coached since day one, have been changed. They've been changed because I had a student recently that gave some insightful information about when they thought the interview started. I'm shifting my mindset and starting to use that, and I thank them for their contribution. So you might want to go back to episode 113 and 114 and give a listen. It will be well worth your time. For today, I'll ask a similar question, but it won't be when does the interview start? Rather, when do you think hiring companies start forming opinions, start making decisions about you? And that includes if you'll receive an interview, and if you receive the pay offer, when will your worth be determined? Like I said before, many companies have decided a pay offer before they interview you. It almost doesn't sound fair, but it's part of human psychology. They start thinking about what your worth is from the minute they get to know you. Now, what does that mean exactly? Don't worry, we're going to uncover that now. Thinking back to when you recently applied for a job, what information did you share? Were there any probing, detailed questions that were asked? In some companies, this can start as early as the job application. You get excited, you found a potential position, you read about the job requirements, you maybe do a little research on the company like I strongly suggest to make sure that they're a good fit for you and you're a good fit for them, and you fill out the job application. It may or may not require a cover letter or resume submission at that time, but those are soon to follow. Your job application's just your standard contact information usually, maybe a little bit about your educational background, possibly work experience. But guess what? That's where they're starting to get to know you if you're sharing your educational background and work experience. But really, here's a clincher. Have you ever seen a job application that asked, why are you interested in applying? What would be your key value? Or what would you bring? What would be a key to coming to work for our company? They are specifically asking you why or what your intention is to come and work for them. Why do you want to work for company X? What do you specifically bring to the table? They can use that information as part of the weed out process to determine if they'd pursue you further, such as offering an interview. So way back from the job application, they're starting to get to know you. Information is being shared. Many companies, although they don't require cover letters, are actually in favor of them, it turns out. I've spoken to a number of human resource and recruiters, as well as talent acquisition professionals, and they actually stated that they appreciate when a cover letter is included. It helps them to get to know the potential employee better. So to back up, we've got our job application, cover letter, and resume. Believe it or not, there's a big story that's being displayed in front of them. And that story is about you. If your story is connected consistently and wholly, it has a good message, it has good value, you are creating a brand, a consistent message about yourself. And that is going to help you, yes, you've guessed it, look at a higher pay offer. Now, many times, as I alluded to in the title of this show, we think closed-mindedly, and we think about pay rate, meaning a specific number. If your hourly pay position, a specific number such as 10, 12, 15, $18 an hour. Depending where you are in your professional career, some of those numbers I mentioned might sound really terrific. Maybe you're making a lower amount of that range, and you'd really like to strive for a larger amount, right? A greater amount of money per hour. That's fantastic. What about salary, though? Salary could be, and I'm just using an example, $40,000 to $60,000 a year. That in itself sounds really great too, right? But as I mentioned in the beginning, if you had been offered that salary rate on the lower edge, or, lower edge of the range rather, you're going to have to work from 40,000 up to 50, 55, even 60, if possible, over many, many years. If you had the opportunity to be offered a higher rate in that range, you'd want it, wouldn't you? Rather than have to work years at lower income, fight inflation, and try to make ends meet, you could enjoy, instead of 40, maybe 45, 50, 55, or even top out at 60. In fact, I know of some people that when ranges were provided, they actually were pushing outside that envelope, respectfully, mind you. And one thing I want to mention, though, it's not about being aggressive. It is about being confident and assertive with your message and your story, but not being aggressive. You don't want to be pushy, bossy, or come across arrogant. So, as you prepare for any interview, for any potential promotion, you want to make sure it's done with humility and respect and appreciation. Can't emphasize that enough. A number of CEOs, even Fortune 500, have said they appreciate those that come in with appreciation, respect. They do admire their confidence. It shows how strong these candidates are. But it needs to be done with respect and humility. In that one case, though, I just briefly mentioned, let's say the range was 40 to 60,000. As their offer was near the top of that range, the candidate appreciated the offer and asked, would there be an opportunity for you to consider 62, 63, 65? Now, here's the thing. I believe in a lot of tools, a lot of acronyms out there, a lot of sayings. It helps us remember, and these are toolkits that go into your Career Growth Made Easy tool belt, right? There's a saying out there, you get 100% of what you don't ask for, meaning you don't ask, you get it every time. You ask for nothing, you get nothing. Therefore, it pays, literally in this case with salary rates, salary ranges, it pays to ask, but ask so with respect. Now, if you really wanted 62,000 and the top out was 60, whether it was advertised or you found that out possibly during the interview, don't ask for 62. Or you can, again, it's your decision. But if you want 62, you might want to ask for 63, 4, or 5, because the company, are likely to counter you. And so it's a bit of negotiation, a bit of give and take. If you say things like, I won't take a penny less than 62,000, that's where it gets a little tricky, because you may be pushing the boundaries too hard. Think about the range versus rate idea. When you start communicating with companies going forward, every piece of information you share should support your story. That story, if consistent, all the way through to documentation and the interview, does create a brand for you, believe it or not. And that branding is important if you want to achieve a higher pay offer. Make it consistent. Now, one final word, kind of like bonus tips, if you will. Many times recruiters, and I was told this last week, many times recruiters will use LinkedIn, for example, to search for candidates. Well, that may not be news to some of you, but I'll tell you this. There are times where two potential candidates are likely to be interviewed. They may both get the interview offer, or there are times where one of those two candidates is up for an interview spot. And a recruiter told me that she uses LinkedIn to help make that final decision. So, what does your LinkedIn profile, what do any of your online professional profiles look like? If we're considering episode 115 today, pay rate versus range, maximize your money, this is all about your story and your potential brand. If your story is consistent, you're building a strong, consistent brand. That brand will bring you higher pay offers, higher salary offers. However, if your professional profiles online, LinkedIn, and other social media sites is inconsistent with that of your job application, your cover letter, your resume, it just muddies the waters, and unfortunately, it devalues you. There may be a case where you still get the interview, but between you and a second candidate, they might offer you what's called a lowball offer because they didn't see the value. You may strongly possess it. Do not get me wrong. You could be the absolute best candidate, the best option for that company. But if you can't share that information of value to your potential hiring company, that potential new position, they're not going to know. So look at all the ways you communicate, all the information that you share when it comes down to a job. Not only job application, cover letter, and resume, as well as interview, but how you communicate after the interview, such as follow-up, and your social media presence, specifically your professional. Clean up the wording. Use correct tense, correct grammar. Keep your content updated. We'll probably do a show just strictly on that, and I think that'll be great to review that together. That will help me as well clean up my social media when it comes to my personal brand and when the time comes for an interview, such as a new company, a new role, or a promotion. So in closing, I want to thank you for sticking in and opening up your mind to the difference between a pay rate versus a range. And in the end of all, it's about your message, your brand. Start thinking proudly, confidently about yourself. Start selling yourself everywhere you go with a positive smile and a positive can-do spirit and energy. As I mentioned in a prior show, you got to find out when the interview starts, and I think you'll love it when you go back and listen to 113 and or 114. But for today, when you start applying for jobs, realize the game is on the minute that you choose a job and start the application process. Stay positive, look for those cookies, those connectors, those breadcrumbs, and follow through to the end to be successful. If you've enjoyed today's show, I would love to get your feedback on social media. I'm at Craig Ansell, CraigAncel. That's on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And you can always reach me directly through email, craig@craigansell.com. Please feel free also to visit my website. We have a coaching calendar set up. There's 4 different types of coaching. I've spoken to several people in the last week or so, and it yielded great results. Go ahead and get down an appointment with me. Let's see where we can take you in your job or career path and accelerate your career growth. Also, I talked about resumes and cover letters. If you haven't dusted yours off, you don't know where it is, or it hasn't been updated in years, that's part of my story of how I got to where I am today. I suffered through that. You can pick up my Resume Masterclass online. That class has 6 modules. They're all about 15 minutes each. I do most of the work for you and just guide you through from a blank sheet of paper to a finished product. Whether you're starting out new, updating, or totally redesigning your career and repurposing yourself, my Resume Masterclass can help. It will demystify the process and help you strongly target your next job. A lot of what we talked about today will become more clear. Also, many people aren't familiar with cover letters or don't even use them. Then, for some roles where cover letters are required, I've had students recently tell me they're skipping the job application process because they don't know what a cover letter is or don't know how to write one. Let's pause briefly on that as we close the episode. If other people are skipping the job application because a cover letter is required, that only makes it more powerful and more beneficial for you to put your resume and cover letter together. Don't worry, I have a cover letter masterclass as well. You can purchase that separately, or for the time being, it comes as a combination when you select my resume masterclass. So take a look at that today on my website. Have a wonderful week ahead. Love to hear back from you. Please visit our website. Please drop a social media note. We're happy to be encouraged and encourage you along your career growth journey. I hope you've enjoyed today's show, episode 115, Pay Rate versus Pay Range, Maximize Your Money. We'll talk to you next week. God bless. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our channel. New episodes every Monday. In the meantime, why don't you follow us on social media at Craig Ansell on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. To book a coaching appointment, download our free guides, or join our email list, check out the links in the description below.